logic. It takes faith to believe or not to believe in God or gods. A lot of faith is needed to believe there is no divine. As Turkish journalist Mustafa Akyol wrote, it is the atheist's opium to regard that unsubstantiated faith as established fact. Thick secularism is thus an anti-religion religion. As Hamlet said to Horatio, there are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in your philosophy. Secular democracies like Singapore should be neutral not only between traditional religions, but also regarding modern religions of atheistic foundations. What is the situation in Singapore? DPN Wom, in a recent media interview, emphasized the secular nature of the political arena and how keeping religion and politics separate was a key rule of political engagement. What this means specifically is that laws and policies derive their legitimacy not from divine sanction, but from a democratically elected government. Law applies generally to all and equally protects all citizens, regardless of race, religion, or social status. Clearly, the Singapore model of secularism is anti-theocratic in that religious tenets and secular law are separated, not conflated as in the Hebrew state under Mosaic law or Ottoman Empire where mosque and state were united. Theocracies are anti-democratic and oppressively homogenizing, especially in plural societies like ours. While anti-theocratic, Singapore's secularism is not anti-religious. This is a vital distinction. DPM Wom welcomed the public service of individuals inspired by their religious convictions. They also set society's moral tone. He affirmed that religious individuals had the same right as other citizens to express their views on issues in the public space guided by their beliefs. Religion is thus separated from politics, but religion is not separated from public life and public culture. Everyone has values, whether shaped by religious or secular ideologies. All may participate in public discourse to forge an ethical social consensus. This is democratic and cherishes viewpoint diversity. While religion is personal, it is not exclusively private and has a social dimension which is not to be trivialized. Thus, Singapore secularism is agnostic and thin. The government does not favor or disfavor any particular religion. We practice accommodative secularism, described by the Court of Appeal as removing restrictions to one's choice of religious belief. Religious values do have a role in public debate. When this House debated the casino project, I noted many MPs prefaced their speeches by confessing their specific faiths. Agnostic secularism of this sort is a virtue. It is a framework which facilitates the peaceful coexistence of religions. It celebrates free conscience, consonant with classic liberalism, which accepts intellectual variety as integral to a free society. Conversely, militant secularism is an illiberal and undemocratic vice in seeking to gag religious views in the public square, and so to privilege its atheistic values as in communist states. Secularism is a faith-based system, like any religion. It has moderates and it has zealots. Like religious fundamentalisms, there can also be secular fundamentalisms. Secular fundamentalists are oppressive where they seek to mute religiously informed convictions in public debate by demonizing a view as religious in attempting to make religious faith a cause for embarrassment or to distract citizens from the merits of an argument by discounting a speaker whose values are shaped by a religious rather than a secular faith. This is a strategy of avoidance, not engagement. One of my colleagues, a family law expert, asked in exasperation, when can a person simply speak up as a whole person made up of all the values that convict him and not be accused of mixing religion with politics? All views should be heard and subject to public critique as the price of admission to the arena of public discourse. This is what it means to take differences seriously. The best argument will most persuade. As John Milton wrote, that truth and false could grapple, whoever knew truth put to the worst in a free and open encounter. Militant exclusionist secularism is thus a recipe for social disharmony. It feeds the culture wars in the US and provokes those it seeks to exclude. It will not promote unity and diversity. Importing this kind of Kulturkampf or culture wars into Singapore would go against the President's call for tolerance, restraint, and mutual respect, which are reciprocal civic virtues. Should this eventuate, das ist nicht gut. The President's call for restraint is timely. The call for toleration must be framed against the bigger question, what should we tolerate? We should be intolerant of racism and anti-religious bigotry, which will impair racial and religious harmony and the rule of law. When it comes to moral disagreements and public policy, the press is powerfully positioned to promote informed debate. However, the press may, by biased and selective reporting, misrepresent, distort, or obscure an issue. We need to broaden our understanding of responsible journalism in Singapore, which, to borrow a canine metaphor, rejects the extremes of an adversarial American watchdog and a pravda-like lapdog or running dog. The Singapore press is expected to promote nation building, help forge consensus, and facilitate consultative democracy. Journalists are entitled, like all citizens, to have their own opinions. However, they do a disservice if they report contentious issues in a one-sided fashion. This misinforms rather than informs. The principle must always be to hear both sides, canvass all perspectives. The feedback I received from friends and strangers on the reporting of the Aware controversy, which was disquieting enough for the precedents to reference, was that much of the reporting, particularly in one paper, was biased. It largely lacked a diversity of views in singing the same chorus that religious groups should not get involved in secular organizations. Emails I received described how many perceive such reporting as being slanted, personal and spiteful, too smug, self-righteous, and irresponsible. Some spoke of their new lists of fair and unfair journalists. The proper limits of religious activism is certainly a valid issue that arose, but there were other issues, such as whether a religious group was involved as opposed to individuals of a religious faith. Another interesting inquiry would be whether it was really a debate about values rather than religious overstepping. Any attention given to this issue was strangely subdued. It was hard to shake the impression that certain journalists were playing the "I don't like your views, so I will play the religionists are imposing the values card." This was very disappointing. When is a reporter reporting and when playing an advocate? We do not want to arrive at the place where, as Mark Twain put it, if you don't read the newspaper, you are uninformed. If you do read the newspaper, you are misinformed. Today published an insightful online letter on May the 5th, which fairly commented that the biased reporting may not only distorted the issue, but may have lent fuel to fire in inciting hatred and ill will against a religious minority. The author wondered whether the highly inappropriate linking of personalities to their personal religious beliefs exacerbated the tension that led to death threats and calls for boycott. He called for the censure of such lines of reporting that incite religious intolerance by speculating one's motive based on personal faith. Irresponsible reporting can threaten social harmony and undermine social cohesion. How is journalistic autonomy, integrity, and accountability to be secured? Responsible journalism should extend to covering a diversity of views, not a journalist's preferred view. It should include the accurate and most effective representation of differing viewpoints and not paint the fringe as mainstream or the pathological as normal. Readers may then see all sides of the issue and decide what is true, accurate, and sound in the spirit of participatory democracy. This is important given the near monopolistic position of Singapore broadsheets. A lawyer recently returned from London wrote to me expressing horror in finding local papers apparently had nothing better to report than the Aware saga, as opposed to the more interesting British papers which offered a lot more variety. This made me somewhat nostalgic for my student days in Cambridge, where I could, with chocolate croissant and Nescafe coffee in hand, survey a range of perspectives from the Times, Guardian, Independent, or Telegraph. Sir, the President